If you write formulas in Excel that deal with a list that might grow or shrink, using entire column references is going to make sense. It will save you time, you'll have cleaner looking formulas, and you won't have to rewrite the formulas as the list grows or shrinks. I've got a sheet called column references. We also have another sheet we'll see in a bit called row references. Here's a worksheet here that includes salary, and we're trying to come up with the tax rate here in column I. As I scroll to the right, you'll see this list over in columns K and L. There's nothing else in those columns except what we're seeing. Now, we might be using the new function called XLOOKUP, but if you're using that or VLOOKUP, you will have to refer to these cells. But do we refer to them by selecting them, or do we refer to them by columns? And I'll show you the variation on how this would work. XLOOKUP is what I'll use. What are we looking up? As with VLOOKUP, it's the salary in cell G2, and we're trying to compare with that list. If we use this by selecting the cells, we see this look on the screen. That would have to be absolute if we're going to copy it down the column. So we'll use the function key F4, comma. With XLOOKUP, we look in one column, we find a match, then we provide answers in another column, comma. And the new XLOOKUP function does give us some other options. We need to find, analogous to VLOOKUP, -1. Not critically important right now that you understand XLOOKUP, but it's the references that we're using here. And also the rates here, that has to be an absolute address as well. So I'll press F4. So that's looking perhaps a bit complex, a bit involved. It is correct. If it's 60,000, it falls into this category right here. And we'll drag this down the column a bit to see some of the other answers. That is correct. Again, double clicking here, we see how wide and long that formula is. Now I'm going to change just the first few and contrast it by using an entire column reference. Let's edit this cell and change this reference here by simply clicking column K. And the column L reference right here, we'll simply click column L. We have a correct answer, and I'll copy this down into a few cells. Now, we can see formulas throughout the entire worksheet quickly with the keystroke shortcut, Control-tilde, or go to the Formulas tab in the ribbon and Show Formulas. And we'll have to make that column wider as I scroll to the right. But look at the difference here. Look how much easier this is to read. Now, it would be very similar for using VLOOKUP, same general idea, but you'd only be highlighting K and L there, just the column letters. But again, notice how complex these look. Makes it more difficult to work with these. This takes more time to understand and figure out. This is a lot better and easier. I'll switch back by choosing, once again, Show Formulas on the Formulas tab or Control-tilde. And we could be using this in other ways too. We want to calculate, for example, total salary. So let me hide some of these intervening columns so we can see our data better. I'll simply drag across these column letters, right-click and hide. If we want to get the total salary here, we can start with auto sum or simply press Alt equal, that's for a sum. And instead of referring to these cells, of course, the data in column G, but rather than highlighting them or somehow typing G2 : G 700 or whatever it is, simply click column G. There it is. Same general idea with average, equal average. Select the entire column letter. A lot easier to read. And what happens if the list shrinks or grows? We don't worry about this. It's going to work just fine, provided we make sure at all times that nothing else is in column G except salaries. And same general idea with median. Here we'd use max, here we use min. And this was already done here with a different column, the date column in column D. So the latest entry there, max. Notice again, the column references, min, and average, and median. Same general sense. The next worksheet over is row references. This is much, much less common, but if we wanted to get an East total here, down in row 16, it's going to be the Boston, New York total. We'll simply press Alt equal to put in sum, but instead of highlighting the cells, we'll simply drag down the row references 2 and 3. That's it. Enter. We've got an answer. And one more here for Midwest. Once again, saving the time of typing equal sum. Just press Alt equal. And here it's row 5 for Chicago, comma, and then row 10. So I'm just clicking on those. Now that looks a little funny too, but it means row 5 and row 10, all the data in those two rows. And once again, you would know and be sure ahead of time there's nothing else in these two rows except the heading and the various numbers. So we have our totals there. So using column references and row references makes good sense. It makes formulas easier to read. You'll save time in writing them, and you won't have to rewrite them, particularly in the case of column references, as lists shrink and grow.